Okay, your favorite. Well, I don't know. You probably have other favorites. One of my favorites. It's time. It's been long enough since the last one. We got stuff to talk about. Don't back anything. Where again, if you need the rules of the game, we'll tell you at the beginning very succinctly and shortly. Don't back anything. Where I tell you not to back anything. I tell you reasons why you should not back any project. Or more specifically, I will go through many projects in as short amount of time as possible and telling you reasons why you should not back them. And as always, you are more than free to tell me I am wrong and you can back it anyway. But what I'm trying to prevent here is the no FOMO zone. The no FOMO zone. So that you don't get stuck in the trap that I am doing, and I am doing the unboxings of things like the past 2 weeks, right? With Mythic Battles Ragnarok and ISS Vanguard finally going, oh my gosh, why did I get this game in the first place? Good gracious. Don't be me. Let's go. I won't lie to you guys. Let's start with Wroth. I'm really confused about this one. Just prior to me filming this, they finally put out the rulebook. Thank you, Chip Theory. Thank you. I was really worried it was going to be like not even coming up at all, and that graphic's been sitting there for nearly 2 weeks. And so I like the fact that they put out the rules for the solo and the co-op to go along with the competitive. But as I also just got an email, literally the day of me filming this as well, from Game Nerds selling me the exact same all-in gameplay bundle for the exact freaking price. Now, take that for what you will. But if you pre-order that right now on Game Nerds, right now, guess what you can probably get with that? Free shipping. Because it's not going to be free shipping on the Gamefound campaign. Although you'll probably have a chance to cancel your Gamefound campaign pledge a lot longer than you can cancel your Game Nerds pledge if you find out more than 30 days from now that you don't want it anymore. This is light area control. It is. It's asymmetric light area control. You may not like this aesthetic. You know what? Don't buy this because you like the aesthetic. Don't do that. You have to love the light style. Take that dice-driven gameplay mechanic from Manny Trimble here. Fantastic looking game. Fantastic. Ignore all the naysayers that this isn't a Chip Theory game, but I'll also say that this isn't a Chip Theory game. Their usual MO, if you will. And so if you are one of their usual customers, maybe this is a pass for you because it's not tinkling your fancy like you think it should. And again, it's going to be heavy, take that. Heavy head to head. And now that people can buy it on Game Nerds, the gameplay all in isn't going to be necessarily, as valuable, because that's the other thing with Chip Theory games, right? We've always said with their campaigns, right, is you're going to get it cheaper. Well, if I can buy it at the same price at retail right now, well, that means people on the secondary market are going to sell it for less than $86 potentially if other places are selling it for that as well. So again, is this a Game Nerds relationship here, which we'll talk about in a second with Simon and Gamefound? Because we just saw also Simon and Game Steward have some sort of handshake partnership now as well, which seems weird to me, but I take it for what it is, I guess. And again, this is what you're going to be getting. Now, with the gameplay all in, you're going to pay, $15 for an extra character faction as well for each of them. And the other thing I have to say with this is I really don't mind deluxifications in general. I rag on them a lot on this channel. But at the same time, the deluxifications here will triple the price of the gameplay all in. That, my friends, is insanity. That is over the top. They're a great company. But that's $100 and almost $60 worth of deluxifications for a $55 to $80 game. Wow. But it's going to be shorter. It's not going to be as deep. It's not going to be as strategic as you may like. It's going to be super heavily tactically based area control. Do you enjoy that? If you don't, easy pass. Or maybe go pick up a copy of El Grande at retail, which will be cheaper than the base game of this in the first place, and see if you like that in place of it. Yeah, I'm throwing it down. Dead keep again. Rant. I did almost 10 minutes in the crowdfunding roundup last weekend. So it's a pre-order. Just like Cthulhu Dark Providence, the Study in Emerald remake. I don't know that there's any incentive to do this. Apparently they've been saying in like comments or updates or whatever else, because I'm, not even following, as you can see here, that it's going to maybe be open for about a month, and maybe they'll tell you when it's going to close in about a week. And there's not any stretch goals, but there's 2 mini Kickstarter exclusive, Gamefound exclusive mini expansions there. It's a reskin of Zombicide, folks. It's a reskin of Zombicide with a scenario-based system that's more like Cthulhu Death May Die, with some True Vang mixed in there, palette color-wise as a whole. So does that appeal to you? I mean, the aesthetic is so much better than Zombicide, though. I was really hoping for something else. But I'm not sure how I feel about Gamefound literally becoming a pre-order store either. Now, I guess it reminds me of like the Scooby-Doo meme, where they've seen it where they have Fred unmasking the villain and then something, funny is underneath the mask instead of the actual villain face. I feel like it's like Gamefound or Kickstarter on the top image of that meme, and then you pull off the mask and at the bottom it's actually a pre-order. Because that's what people complain about for the past years, right? Is that these companies are using it as a pre-order. Well, literally, it's using it as a pre-order now. So I don't know. I thought Gamefound was just going to be all completely crowdfunding. So no. And supposedly God of War is coming next month of April. So if they can just retail this, again, like you saw Cthulhu Darth Providence go through Simon's web shop. Are they just using this as a marketing strategy with a wider reach? That's the only thing I can think of. You can't see how many people are actually getting it, interested in it, or even pre-ordering it at this point. So it doesn't give you a trend of things, so maybe that's better on the FOMO side of things. Maybe it's not. And you get the Goblin Chaos, limited quantities of single print run. I mean, like I said in the roundup video, this is a complete and utter toss-up. You read the rule book and it is screaming Zombicide with a scenario-driven aspect of things. There's 2 videos from Board Game Co on the page, which aren't going to give you enough information probably to make you feel completely comfortable one way or the other. Maybe they will. But, the rule book is there. It's almost a 50-page rule book for a slightly heavier Zombicide. Again, these rule books, folks, getting longer and longer to do the same sort of thing. And do you really need the extra stuff? It's totally a crapshoot. It's a coin flip a la the Lines of Mordred from last year, right? Mordred might turn out to be a fantastic area control game, or it may not, because there's just no telling with some of these games nowadays. I guess if you're looking for something scenario zombie side-ish, well, then you can go with this. But again, like, you're paying $160 for a core plus 2 mini expansions that are exclusive. You're paying the exclusivity tax, essentially, is what's going on here. So are you okay with that? Because that's essentially what you're doing. Fine, miniatures, awesome, aesthetic, I love it, but nothing to incentivize me. So my wallet is clearly safe with this one, and yours might be too, I guess. So the other thing to note on this one, there's no shipping. There's no price on shipping at all on this one. So I have no clue what it's going to be. Obviously, it's not going to be as big a box, but the Simon shipping has always been sort of up in the air, literally speaking and figuratively speaking, with their last half dozen campaigns. So is that a make it or break it for you to pay $200+ to get this game as a whole with a big unknown there? Well, you do you, but you heard my words. Robot Quest Arena Bot Battle. This is deck building with heavy take that. And I've heard it's just really chaotic. It's got king making potential and king making, written all over it, essentially, as just a game where you knock each other out, you come back and you knock each other out again, right? I think the combination of those two things is fantastic, but it turns into some of the 2-player duelings as well of a 2-player slug 'em out, right? So where you just sit there and slug them out, and whoever can do the most first wins, and then you just respawn. So, where is the tactical nature of this? I mean, I think it'd be like these quotes say. I feel like all these quotes are really getting blown up. Like, I don't feel like these were there the first time I was around. So either way, I think it's neat, but you are paying a very deluxeified tax with this one for these little miniatures. And the expansion stuff that you're getting new with this one, these robot packs, you're paying for a mini, 4 tiles, and 10 cards. And 20 new cards, but those are, okay. But that's a lot of money because these price points are not insignificant as a whole when we actually get down to this. And so if you really want to get all this stuff, it's going to cost you a ton of money, right? $90 for 4 of those. It's a lot. Let's not kid ourselves. Expansions are where the margins are. And I think this is a campaign that's showing us more of that. And if you're one of those things, I mean, it's going to kind of cost you $70 to get in. It's not super high, but it's also not super low. Because I feel like this could be very akin to the other deck building genre smashing games, Lost Ruins of Arnak and Dune Imperium. Because you may like that combination of things. You may not. Because again, that's the problem with things that are doing something slightly different, slightly new, is until you sometimes try them, you're not quite sure of how it's actually going to fit. See sale and fit to print for me from 2023, right? Like games I thought should have been smashing home runs. So, right? All in. Is this a $350 game for you? Is this a $350 lighter filler-esque game for you? I'm asking the question because for me personally right now, it's a try before buy. I love the pre-painted miniatures. I think they look fantastic from an aesthetic standpoint. But if I'm going to pay, for that deluxeification, I need to know that I love it already. So you might very well look at this pack up here and these unlocks as someone who already loves this game and go, yeah, Chris, that's a great deal. Chris, that's Guards of Atlantis 2 for you. Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I totally get it. This is not a buy before you try pledge level either with this campaign. So you really, really have to love it. Go pick up a copy on the secondary market. Retail edition without the exclusive promo pack. Save yourself some money. Come back to this in 4 months and late pledge if you really love it. So take it for what it is. Fox Experiment, Deluxe, Deluxeified, Deluxe. You're getting player mats, you're getting deluxe wood and tokens. The Fox meeples are better, but you're going to pay a pretty price for it too. Because if I did my math on the crowdfunding roundup correctly, which I probably did not, to get in with all of the deluxeifications right now, the base game was $70 and 1 shipping. And the upgrade from the previous one was $35 plus like 60. So with 2 shippings. And so that's not a great price point. And again, if you're going to pay this much money, if you're literally almost going to pay 100% of the game cost in deluxeifications, you don't wonder if you're going to like this game, right? It reminds me of LCGs with sleevers, where these LCG players buy Marvel Champions or Arkham Horror and Nauseum, right? They love the idea of it and they sleeve it all even, and then they sell it and they expect me to pay for sleeves. No, I'm not paying for your sleeves and your mistakes. But that's sort of what this looks like is, okay, do you really need the deluxeifications in terms of wooden upgrades if you don't, again, know if you love it? It's a engine build-esque in the style of Wingspan. And again, some of the quotes here are, I like it more than Wingspan. It's a great game. It's fantastic. But again, like on this page, I criticized it on the roundup. There's no information on the game. This is basically like almost a Board Game Geek bits advertisement on a crowdfunding page right now. And I say that as someone who likes what Pandasaurus puts out, but there's just not anything on this page, if you're not familiar with this, to entice anyone to get in at a new price point. And so that's why, at the time of me filming this, it's not funded. It will fund. I have no doubts about that. But again, just like, why not actually just copy and paste from the first campaign over to this one? That's all you need to do. So how do you feel about that right now? Reign of Hades. This is an asymmetric Greek god-driven game. It's bringing you a tactical overview of engaging monsters from a 1 versus 1, 2 versus 2, as well as a few cooperative scenarios. It's expensive for what it is. It's a bit of an unknown. This is the biggest unknown so far of all of these games, right? Because at least with Zombicide, at least what you want to say with Dead Keep is it's kind of hard to screw that up. In terms of what you're getting, right? Might be slightly better, might be slightly worse, depending on your individual feelings on it. But you know what it is at the core. This is going to be different. Euro resource management, head-to-head, Gloomhaven style-esque with a card-driven gameplay. And it's going to be heavier, right? Richard Amon here. These are some great pedigrees, but this is going to be too heavy for some people who are looking for a lighter version. And because the deluxe version here is $130, that's, again, not an inexpensive price point. The mechanics aren't going to be as intuitive as you may enjoy with your lighter fare overall. When it says Euro, really what it means is higher learning curve, harder to get to the table, only with a Euro game now we've added miniatures as well to increase the price point. Again, not that that's a bad thing by itself, but is that the right fit for your playstyle? Because this is probably best as a 1 versus 1. then you can play 2 versus 2 a la Guards of Atlantis-esque with a little bit more of a Euro feel. And that's very reminiscent of kind of what they've got going on here vibe-wise. The standard edition gets you a little bit of exclusive content, but you're really going to have to pay, over $100 for the real exclusives and the character packs. And so is that triple-digit price point worth it for you? You can get the individual stuff. You can super deluxify it. You can see all of the powers, all of the stuff that goes along with it. They're 15 card decks. They're upgradable weapons and monsters, and battling and allocating the monsters as you're going along, and the several cooperative scenarios that you can play through that are not just smash and bash, but it's a lot of money for this tweener game, right? It's not fully Euro. It's not fully Amerithrash. And that's probably the niche that's a little bit harder to fill. And ultimately, that's why it's only got $165,000. Because you're not really getting the full Euro gamers, you're not really getting the full Amerithrashes, and that Venn diagram of overlap is just smaller. Are you willing to take a risk with the designer pedigree and a newer company? I mean, high risk, high reward with this one. Again, I say that as someone who really likes the idea of this game too, to be very clear. Algae Inc. We're just staying on Gamefound, folks. This one may fund by the time it ends. Game Brewer. This is a heavy tech tree driven, nature themed, again, Euro game. This is probably one of the heaviest ones on this video. I thought this was going to be a lighter mid-weight engine build, and this is really kind of heavy. And it's got a lot of elements. It's got a lot of dynamics. And I'm just not sure I understand the flow after reading the rulebook. And you have these workers, you're placing them in pods, you're having conveyor belts that will automatically move your resources for you, and you're going to be activating certain ones at certain times. There's a lot of stuff going on here. There's a lot of pieces to this puzzle. And so, is it a puzzle that you would enjoy? Puzzle-wise, it seems interesting in a nutshell. But individually minutia-based, again, for like another 40 to 50 page rulebook, it's extensive. And so I fear that this is going to have too much overlap with things that you might already have in your repertoire. Again, I think the idea is rather clever. I like the algae theme, but it's a little bit of resource management, pick up and deliver, as well as you're filling these contracts. So it's a little bit of a mix of mechanics there too. So I can't speak to it any further. These are harder and harder to differentiate for me as a whole, but you know what? We talk about it anyway. Veiled Fate, killing it. It's going to break 1 million. It's an expansion. You know what? The expansion is freaking awesome. It's modular. 3 of the 4 are freaking amazing. Wouldn't play without, right? Freaking sweet. This isn't going to change your opinion of the base game. If you didn't like what Veiled Fate was offering in a social deductive, manipulating every character that you want to make sure no one knows which one you are, to get your endgame scoring points the highest, but now having other ways of mitigating, damaging, or even deciding how the game ends, this isn't going to change your mind whatsoever. It's a fantastic game, folks. Fantastic. I love this. This took it from a game I was like, okay, yeah, this is good, to a game I'm like, wow, this is really, really impressive now. The dynamic elements of that. The Celestials are the thing that I probably wouldn't use as much, but the Servants and Hadria and the cards are going to be ones that you never want to play without. So that's just where I'll say. And it's going to be a premium price. IB Studios puts out a premium product just like Chip Theory. You're going to pay more for it comparatively because of their production, their deluxeification at a base level. Is that okay with you? This is heavy manipulation. It's not necessarily direct take that, but it can turn into that depending on how you play, how the dynamics are going, and what you prefer. You're probably going to get a good deal, especially at the higher levels that aren't available hardly at all. But is it really going to change your opinion on it at a game that probably is best optimized at a 4 to 6 player count as well? So that's what you have to think about on here. And, you can check out my video, but I'm sure other people who are much bigger than me across the board here, like these folks and, these folks and, whoever else, all the other folks I already passed, and they're all more important than I am. So you can check that out as a whole. So see if it's right for you. But again, this is a meta, repeated play, social game. Is that your jive? This will not change your opinion on it, period. And for some, that's going to be a blessing. For some, that's going to be a curse. I mean, Plus, you know, again, here's my video. Prompt. Anyway, I'm done. River Valley Glassworks. It's a lighter, less controlled Azul. Let's take that hate drafting Azul. So how does that appeal to you? It's really random. But if you're like me and you're a chaos agent of, you know, neutrality, I meant to say that in the other order, an agent of, you know, chaotic neutral, if you will. That sounds a little bit better coming out of my mouth, but that's what you get on this channel, you know. And if you really want to see me screw up, tune into the end and watch the outtakes in the last 5 to 10 seconds of the video. I guarantee you can really have a good laugh at me from that standpoint. And you're getting mini modular expansions. Now, I only had the base game, but I think these expansions are going to make it from, hey, this is kind of good to, yeah. So that's why you should be getting it, because again, they put out a product that you're going to get a better deal on from crowdfunding. But if you don't like Azul, if you don't like this, again, it's not perfect information. The randomness of the gems that you are drawing from the bag, the allocating them on the river, the potential overflow, the dynamic of the scoring of the board, which is going to be very similar each time you play. Again, not as a criticism, but as a comment in the rows and the columns. It's going to be very detail oriented on some of those tactically based things, but it's also going to be a game where you're playing at the higher player counts, and it may not matter what you're doing looking at the board until your actual turn. Like, it's one of those games where you can just look away and then all of a sudden look back, because the game board's going to change until literally the person goes before you. So deluxe edition, real glass, it's good, but those features are going to need to be important for you. There's a solo mode. Here's the free expansion with the modular stuff, the asymmetry, the assistance, again, asymmetric powers, the modular Glassworks here, gaining an equipment card to score bonuses. So all of those things are exactly what I said in my video. It needed a little bit something, and there you go. So I'll play solid, quality, lighter filler style games as a whole. And there's a reason that they get a couple $100,000. I'm not going to talk about Lure. I don't know anything about Lure, but if you're looking at this one, that's the make it or break it for you. Super Boss Monster. Again, I'll say my personal bias with this one is try before buy. Brotherwise Games. This is a better version. I would say this is the 2.0 version of Boss Monster. But if you didn't like the drafting and sort of luring with less control of the monster building dungeon tile layout system that they've got, they stick to it and just tweak it with a market and an action selection system that gets you a little bit of extra. That's going to be very akin to the original in the first place. I mean, great thing is it's backwards and compatible. The downside is if you didn't like the first one, you're just like with Veiled Fate, you're not going to like this one either. Now, I'm always willing to give games a second try because I think there's more to it than the original. And so is just like with the River Valley Glassworks expansion, if I'm going to give that kudos and I'm going to give that credit, that's what I'm going to do here too. But again, for me, like having one hands-on versus the other not having hands-on, you know, that's where my bias is coming in. And I'm saying, okay, I'd love to try this out at some point. Love to. Brotherwise, send me a review copy after it gets produced, right? But at this point, that's sort of my feeling on it in general. I think the concept is freaking awesome, actually. It's just, you know, I think what my problem was with it originally was what I thought it was going to be and what it ended up being were just two different things. And so I think that left me with anything else rather than that it's not a good game. I think it's a fine game. Again, it's a great filler for a lot of different folks. This would be a great, fantastic game for my kids. My kids thematically would love this. But do you need the deluxifications and the slight gameplay that Brotherwise does? Because otherwise you'll be able to get it probably cheaper on the secondary market if you don't need some of the extra stuff. So that's the dilemma more than anything else. Super Boss Monster. It's Boss Monster, supersized, right? There's a reason it's got $500,000, right? Solid following. And kudos to them for doing it. Inventors. Couple days left. $250,000. Killing it, right? Super heavy. I tried to read the rule book for this one when it launched, and on my roundup, like, this is going to be probably the toughest read of all the rule books of all the games I cover in this video. I kid you not. Again, You're probably going to hear that. If you're a first-time viewer to my channel, you're probably going, he just doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, folks, I am reading about 10 to 15 rule books for board games on my crowdfunding roundup a week. So when I say this is probably going to be the most difficult in terms of how am I putting these pieces together, believe me on that. And are you really looking for that? Are you going in because you want this game from a mechanical, I love this play style thing? Are you going into this as a Garfield, fanboy? Or are you going into this as I need to complete the trilogy as well? Because oftentimes with these combination games, right? Nemesis, Arcadia Quest is, or whatever else it may be, Zombicides, pick your poison, pandemics even, right? You find out that one of them is much better for you than the others. How did you find that out, though? That's the part you don't want to admit, because what it means is you probably bought all three and found that you really liked one of them a ton better. Do you want to make that, not mistake, do you want to make that choice, we'll say, here? Or, again, support your indie publisher, get the promo pack, pay shipping, wait, pick it up on the retail, or trade for it like I did with Wayfarers, which was fantastic. I got to try Wayfarers out, and then I got to get rid of it because I just ultimately didn't fit well with me. And that's what you have to deal with. The crafts, the tradespeople, the variability in how you're playing this game through, it's tremendous. There are so many moving parts in this game. So many parts. Do you like that many moving parts, though? I think it's too much for me. Is it going to be too much for you, though? That's an answer I don't have. Again, I love the fact that you can try a lot of these games now. You should try this one. You should watch a full playthrough of this one. It's beautiful. The iconography is just fantastic. But is it really going to be for you? And that's the question you have to ask yourself, because again, like I mentioned, if promo packs and metal coins aren't your incentive, you're almost always better waiting for Garfield at retail. And they say that on the page almost every time. Go back us and buy us at retail. We're okay with that. So again, doing well, but heavy. Speaking of heavy though, let's stick with heavy and let's go to the other heavy, which surprisingly has double the amount raised. Galactic Cruise, right? First time company. Fantastically heavy Lacerda-esque Euro game. Space theme, space components, and about the price you'd expect for a deluxe Euro. Slightly more, though, because they're offering a couple accoutrements, accommodations, advancements, expansions. And so, again, how do you feel about expansions being, with crowdfunding games nowadays? We've talked about them on multiple other pages already. And I feel like I'm going to be a little bit of a hypocrite here, but I kind of wish some of that stuff, like even the River Glassworks one, was incorporated in the base game already, right? Veiled Fate, right? I said I'm not going to play the game without it anymore. And that's what you have to ask yourself here. Is this that? Or is it one of the other ones that overcomplicates it? There's a lot going on with this one too. I would say this one is a little bit more intuitive, maybe, than Inventors, comparatively, in my head, right? As a non-heavy Euro gamer. But that doesn't mean much, because I think this weight might be just as comparable, board game geek-wise, to Inventors. And a lot of people have been hyping this one up. And so that's what I saw on social media and on the personality creator side of things prior to this campaign. They really liked it. So I don't really know what to tell you on this one. Are you going to like it? Or is it going to be a Darwin's Journey where, maybe you just pick it up on the retail side of things, don't worry about all the extra accoutrements, and see if you really enjoy it that way. And you know what? Pick it up when it comes out later. Pick it up when it comes back to crowdfunding the second time. Because just like with Dead Keep, right? Just like any of those miniature games, there's always going to be another one next month. And you know what's going to happen, though? If it's really good, it's going to come back around. Or, well, the miniature games, right? They all compete for the same table space, the same mind space, the same rules space in your head and literally on your table. And so from that aspect of things, would you have other games be replaced by this one? I just sold 4 big box games this past week. to buy some more Star Wars crack. Anyway, to free up space, right? To free up space. And because I said I'm not going to get this played, or I'm not in love with it, or I'm just not going to play it over other things. And that's where my head goes with this one. The other interesting thing that this campaign needs to have talked about really quickly is they went with the, chip theory strategic pledge level thing too. And if you're chip theory and you're paying $750, right? Like, that they're putting out a ton more games. Kinson Key here, like their first one. So are we going to see more of that in the future? I don't know. I'd be very interested in trying this one after production. Again, I'm actually, spoilers here in case you're tuning into this part of the video, I'm getting a copy of Youthia from Steamforge. I am completely open to trying this stuff, just like I said with Wayfarers, but dipping my toes in very carefully and very selectively to see. Because is this going to be like an unconscious mind for me, or a Wayfarers of the South Tigris, where one just clicked a little bit better, And I can't tell you why that is, right? It's one of those where you know it when you see it, as the court said. And you know it when it clicks, and you know it when it doesn't click. So that's going to be my biggest personal issue. Do you know what I'm talking about, though? Because that'd be my question for you with this one as well. Let's go to the complete opposite direction now, and we're just going to go super light. Cascadia, rolling. Don't buy this. Don't get it. You don't need 2 copies of the same thing. These aren't going to be that dramatically different. You're going to like one of them over the other. My wife loves this type of game. I'm probably going to back it. I shouldn't tell you that. I am telling you that. Again, full transparency spoilers here. And again, this is one that, maybe in a year after, the campaign delivers and everything else, Flat Out or whoever else does their distribution will probably offer a review copy to me, maybe. I don't know. I don't even know how that gets done anymore. I just get random emails sometimes not. Who knows? Email people. It's a crazy hectic thing on the back end of this side of things. Let me tell you, folks. But it's Cascadia with a roll and write version. It sort of gives me vibes of the roll and write version of Let's Make a Bus Route, the Sashi and Sashi one, not the like wooden revision of Let's Make a Bus Route with the wooden pieces over in the USA one. And so I just look at this and I go, and I was really thinking, going to this page and saying this is going to be overpriced. It's going to be $50 for both of them, and I'm not going to have any interest. And then it's $35. Mother frackin' forker, right? And so that's just what it is. And if they're giving me a complete amount of asymmetry between both these boxes, it's harder and harder to say no. But that's my fear. Like when you buy more, are you actually buying more to save more? Or are you going to have significant overlap? Because this almost scares me in a way like Aeon's End, where Aeon's End expansions standalone. Full disclaimer, little asterisk at the bottom, that there's going to be about a 30% overlap with some of the contents and the actual stuff that you're going to use to play the game, right? Like with the crystals and the graveholds and the mages of the same names. And then that. And that's what I worry about with this. Flat Out puts out a flat out good product. But this probably isn't going to convert you for a roll and write either. This is probably going to be a too little light for you as well. Because, all the people that ragged on Cascadia for being a too light, this is going to be on the lighter end of things. It's going to have a Cascadia-esque heaviness on the roll and write spectrum. And are you looking for a Hadrian's Wall, Motor City, Three Sisters situation? If you are, pass. If you're looking for a slight upgrade from Cartographers, color you intrigued. And you get a little extra. But you can get all this at retail as well. So there's not anything you're FOMOing if you want to pay $5 or $10 extra and deal with that, because you don't necessarily need the promo cards either, right? Because promos are promos. You don't need promos. Etherstone. This one also, as an engine build card play, head-to-head, smash them up, using your dice, utilizing resources and actions of the same color and same manipulation. Awesome aesthetic. I have no idea. The gameplay just doesn't seem as intuitive to me reading through the rulebook, reading through the page. And so again, for me, this one has absolutely, I would love this game after I tried it. So that's my biggest conundrum right now, more than anything else. I'm not going to tell you it's not going to be your money's worth, right? Like, look at all these stretch goals. Look at all that content you're getting extra here. We've got what? Like now 14, 16, 18, 20 different things unlocked. So money's worth, sure. You know, you don't want anything else but the base game, it's going to be low 30s. That's not bad. But if it's a low 30s card-driven gameplay on crowdfunding plus shipping, that makes me think it's going to be even lower than that at retail. And you want wooden and metal deluxe components here? That's not expensive for deluxifications. But again, for a card game, it's probably 2.5 times the price. So from that aspect of things, that's just where my hesitation is. Because you know this is my vibe on this channel, right? This is my vibe. This type of game all over the place. But apart from that, I just don't know. The flow isn't as, easily distinguishable on the page. The rule book, although very elegantly put together, still, again, makes me kind of wonder. And I could see myself going away just like, this is a game I should like, but will I like it? And so this one's going to go right down to the wire for me. But is it going to also have a place in sort of this head-to-head take that engine build attacking style game as well? The presents. I give them a lot of kudos. This is an absolutely looking fantastic, one of the best aesthetic games on this whole video as well. But it's a potential semi-co-op, right? This is House on the Hill, horror, betrayal, all of those rolled into one with a ghost who you don't know if they're on your side helping you or hurting you until it's maybe too late. And so it's a semi one versus all, right? It's like Dead of Winter, where sometimes you just want to play Dead of Winter with just the cooperative, right? You just want to know. And you don't always want that, semi-cooperative-ish feel. Just like with Marvel Legendary, I just want to win. I don't care who has the most points. It leads to then everyone just playing worse and not having as much fun. So that's my only fear with this. Asymmetric, but semi-co-op. I think the vibe of this, the production of this looks fantastic. But that's a real question mark on gameplay if you're not a one versus all. Could you do this solely like sometimes I do with Dead of Winter, where you just toss the Allegiance cards out? Is it that easily adaptable? Would you be as happy with it? Because that's not really how it's primarily intended. It's primarily intended to bring that dynamic. And so would that throw it off if you did that? Or are you truly needing to be willing to have that be the core experience as well to enjoy it as much? And that's a question I'm asking you. I don't have an answer for that one. Again, I'm a big one versus all fan, but one versus all is probably one of the more niche and the more divisive mechanics in general in our hobby. It's probably right up there with pick up and deliver, right? Of things that people aren't always necessarily a huge fan of. So that'd be the only thing that you have to know about. So again, I think it's an absolutely different concept, intriguing with a mix of things you've seen before, but with a new spin and twist. And that's why it's got $100,000 from a first-time creator. But also, you need to know what you're getting into. So review rules twice, pledge once. Measure twice, cut once, that thing. My pun on it is a bad one. I know, I'm sorry. Dying Light, we got to talk about it. Just ended, but you need to know about it, right? Are you going to late back this gas kind of unplugged? This is a slightly heavier zombie side with a parkour evasion, climb, jump driven mechanic. This is not a smash, bash, crash. Smash, bash, crash. Why did I say that? Smash, bash, crash style of game. If you do that, you will lose. It's scenario driven, but the scenarios are not necessarily as short as you may want. I mean, this is going to be a good hour to hour and a half scenario driven system where you're going from point A to point B, trying to unlock things with a potentially splitting scenario driven narrative that you're dealing with, depending on which one you interact with and which one you don't. It's fun. It's got a very clever dice mechanic where rolling blanks doesn't hurt you, which is kind of the first time I've ever seen that in the game. But this is expensive, a la a zombie side. That's what it is. I mean, it's going to cost you right here. You can see standard pledge right there. But anything else with anything more deluxeified is going to cost you triple digits. Because again, it's going to occupy the same category. And how clever you can be with your dice as an action management system is really what you're going for here. Not, like I said, the direct head-to-head smash, boom, I have a bigger gun, weapon, item than you, that a lot of the other zombie-based games are doing, and that's what sets it apart. And it requires a little bit more setup teardown. It was not anything huge. I think they've done something very unique and clever with this terrain. I mean, I talked about it in my video. I showed you copies of it. But isn't enough to change your mind. Dice-driven. It's dice-driven, though. And there's lots of zombies, lots and lots of zombies. It's not an easy necessarily game either. And there are some minutia rules in terms of how they're spawning and following you and dealing that sort of thing. But the day-night mechanic as well, you know, randomness of pulling what's going to happen zombie side wise. And sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you get screwed. Are you okay with that? And see, look, they give you a little instruction right there on how to do it. If I would have just looked at that GIF before I did my video, would have made my life a lot easier because I am the village idiot in terms of putting those things together. Several different types of zombies. They give you all different dynamics you're going to be dealing with. A few different runners that you have, but really the main difference there is the zombies as a whole. And so I kind of wish, at least on the scenario I had, a little less zombies, a little bit more just like different types that interact in crazy ways. But I'm guessing all of the other scenarios will have that. And the other thing, the expansions, like one's like a windmill and one's underground. So are those dynamics with the different terrain levels enough to entice you as well to get the extras? A little bit of exclusive stuff, but not a ton. So you could pass on this one and pick those up maybe later if you want to without feeling too bad. But again, this one's, it's doing something different. But again, because it's different, is it going to be a good fit for you? Because those dynamics of the evasion and the jumping and the going back and forth are just different enough. So that's what you have to ask for that price point. Ostia, Pirates expansion, reprint. Ochibakoya puts out a very solid game. It's got a mandala effect going on with this game as a whole, and it's going to be cheaper here than it is going to be anywhere else. So if you want this game as a Japanese indie publisher, you get it on crowdfunding. But if you don't have a knowledge base of it, it's not one you're going to pick up on the secondary market for anything close to what it is on here. The mandala mechanic is something that people either really like or really don't like. Where you get your action is based on where you put your last piece. And the Pirates expansion and the other little modular expansions that are going along with this are going to give you more content, but is it going to change your mind as well with the core mechanic being that in the first place? Probably not, as you're dropping these ships around and taking turns, as it says here, until the end game is triggered. So you're getting a few more content expansion stuff here, but it's really an indie project. But again, it's so different than other things you may have done or dealt with. Are you willing to pay the premium product in the first place? But it must be really well thought of, right? Because otherwise, a small Japanese indie publisher with a reprint of this game, as I don't realize I have that hovering over the wrong part there, doesn't get $250,000 otherwise if it's not. So take that for what you will, but it's going to be annoying Kickstarter doing that repeatedly, as well as just a little bit longer, as you can see the play count there and the time. So there you go. Flashpoint, Legacy of Flame. Legacy on crowdfunding. You can't reveal anything without revealing stuff. The core elements of this game are no different than the original, essentially, the basic crux of it. And they say there's going to be more, though. They say they are going to make it different. They are going to be more of a legacy. It's going to be more of a scenario-driven, upgradable, go along the way, evolve as you progress. But if you weren't a fan of the original, right, like, that's the dilemma here. Because I know some people that really liked Pandemic Legacy that didn't like Pandemic. But I feel like there's also plenty of people that said, Pandemic regular didn't do it for me. Pandemic Legacy, where I'm tearing stuff out and the consequences are going to be even worse, didn't appeal to me either. So that's going to be the question here with this one for you as well. $60, and you can pay $89 here if you want some of the fire rescue unlocks to go along with it. But yeah, $60. I mean, it's Jurassic Park. High risk, high reward as well in a legacy thing, because you just can't exactly spoil what's needing to be spoiled in terms of enticing people. Like, hey, this is super clever. Hey, this is super clever. Hey, this is super clever. There's only so many times you can shout that, because again, it gives you the basic overview of Flashpoint in general, but not necessarily as much as you may want to feel completely comfortable getting it from a legacy side of things on crowdfunding as well. Acornism, speaking of Japanese games, it's just a cute little tile layer, but it's going to be too light for you people, and you have to get the exact number of dots around these animals to place one of your own in the first place. You're forming an 8x8 grid, and that's about it. It's cheap though, but cheap doesn't mean great for you. Cheap means you can buy it and not feel as bad when you don't play it. And you're just surrounding and scoring. Surrounding, scoring, and go. There are a couple other games that are included on this page that you can order that either aren't out yet or were out very limited release in the Tokyo market. But it's going to be a lighter abstract style game. 2 players. Do you enjoy that? I freaking do. So I'm going to go for it, but it's probably not right for you as a whole then. Requiem. Downfall of Magic. What I was a little confused by, though, at the same time with this campaign was there was so much dedicated to the crossover, right? The first 2 pledges are just crossovers for Nova Atos and the Magician pledge here for Black Rose Wars that have nothing to do with this game. They use the characters, the locale from this game, but just pure ports over. And so the game itself is very expensive. $160 for a miniature-based cooperative narrative campaign game. And so how do you decide, just like your heavy Euros, your narrative campaign games, which are now becoming more and more prevalent as well, with a dice-based upgradable system class that you're going to be utilizing, going up against enemies with skill checks and keeping track a la several different chapter discovery and boards that you'll be doing. But it's more like Journey into Middle-earth, the Lord of the Rings game, than anything else out there. Sort of even more like the one from Lucky Duck with the app-driven system. It gives me a little bit more of those vibes of moving around and exploring and, you know, questioning and having skill checks and things like that. So now just add a bigger narrative campaign than Dark Quarter, that's what it was from Lucky Duck. So how do you feel about that then? And I have a copy sitting on my counter at the time of me filming this that I have to get to the table so I can give you more in-depth thoughts separately. But it's expensive for what it is. And if you want to just get the ports, I'm glad that they separated stuff out. I give them kudos for that. But cooperative, narrative-driven games, do you have the bandwidth? How much this one is going to be different or suiting to your needs, apart from others as well that are similar in the genre. A few more, obviously, we have to cover that just finished that were big names. FLOE, Pika, Fantasia, and 6,500 people. Nearly, $750,000. This is a game that's going to be a little bit divisive for people because it's a little bit of a twist on the Euro, a little bit lighter, a little bit more mechanistic variation, if you will, and a lot of different areas that you're combining. And so the question is, with a lot of these games, just like they're one with Unconscious Mind, right? Are there elements with any of these bigger-ish, like not necessarily heavy, but more spread Euro games that have parts that maybe you don't like as much, right? Is it the combat? Is it the movement? Is it the resource allocation where you have to fill up your resource in order to be able to upgrade the storage in the first place, right? So for example, if your storage is at 2, right, and you have a maximum of 2, you have to have 2 of those resources in order to upgrade how much more you can carry now to 3, and then it depletes it back down to 0. So then you have to fill it back up to 3 to get it to 4, which depletes it back down to 0. So is that a dynamic element that you're going to like? And I like the fact that you go back to the town back and forth just very easily to utilize those actions on the open world map. But, again, the open non-hex-based system that they're going for here with the ice and the flows and the land, it's hexes of a different shape. It is, folks. So take that for what you will, and that's okay. But the question is, are you willing to pay a premium price for it now of nearly $100? Again, to find out whether or not you like this deluxeified Euro mix with a tiny bit of combat to go along with it. Because again, if you're getting the all-in with all of the extra stuff, even if you're getting the gameplay stuff down here, it's going to run you close to that anyway. So not inexpensive as a whole. But again, the nice thing about a lot of these, as I haven't mentioned in all of them, is a lot of them allow you to play online right now. So if you're not like me and you say, I can't just read the rulebook and know, then go play it online. And that's okay. Go watch somebody else play it. Like, I don't do playthroughs because I suck at rules and I suck at explanations and they're super long and I just don't have the setup greatest for it. So anyway, but yeah, check out other people's because those seem to be popular-ish now as part of the paid content. So you're seeing more and more of this pop up on these pages as a whole. So whoops, you see that right there, right? Backed, Thunder Road Vendetta, Carnival of Chaos, right? This is going to change Thunder Road Vendetta. At the same time, it really doesn't change Thunder Road Vendetta, right? Because Thunder Road Vendetta is really an Ameritrash game at heart of take that, knocking out other people's sort of, cars in a just head-to-head race battle. And this just removes the race part and just allows you in the Carnival of Chaos to just smash, bash, and crash into other people directly as sort of a derby. So is that appealing to you? It's expensive for what it is. No lie, it's expensive. I have no qualms about saying that. At the same time, Restoration, like Chip and like IV, are less on crowdfunding than they are at retail because of their premium pricing and products later. So is that okay with you? I'm debating about the insert as someone who hates inserts, right? I have a notorious grudge against inserts in this channel, but the issue, I guess, is that if you get the insert, it doesn't cause lid lift. Do I really care about lid lift though? I'll be honest with you guys, I really don't care about lid lift too much. So, I don't know. You're going to get another faction, though, that you can utilize, which is kind of cool. And you have the double-sided arena. So, the extra content for backing it as well makes it more worth it in addition. Probably more so because you don't know when some of these other stuffs are coming to the retail side of things, because all of these expansions with Maximum Chrome didn't come out yet either, even though we're well out. And this is what I was talking about. The box extender, 2-piece cardboard collar, so you can get the box extender here, and that's free. Or I can buy the insert for better stuff. But now I think they said they're not just doing this wooden insert. No, this is foam core, never mind. This is the one they were talking about. So assembly required, but it allows you, again, right, this is the issue I have with inserts. It's a nice insert. It doesn't necessarily help me the first time around get it in and out any easier. It basically stops it from being jostled around. And that's sort of irritating when it's just, I'm not even going to rant on it, right? It's just a big issue more than anything else. So I love this game. You won't love this game. So if you don't love this game, don't get it. That's okay. You don't need all the other stuff. And that's a lot of money. $43. $43 versus the free price right there, right? I am Dutch. $43 at this point almost pays for half of a box of Star Wars crack. Anyway, next game. Ready, Set, Bet High Roller Edition. Again, this was sort of a love letter to the love of this game more than anything else. And it killed it. It killed it. I mean, that's why when I talked about at the beginning of the video, the Fox experiment, it's going to fund. People love their deluxeifies being deluxeified. And that's what this is. And so if this is one of your favorite games, this gives it a table presence to really make it stand out as a gambling aspect of things. And again, I have some very strong mixed feelings on gambling in general, in this style of things, especially when it mimics real life gambling so much. And again, that's my own bias. I'm not preaching at you. I'm not going to throw it at you in your face. But like, there are certain topics and things that, I think everybody looks at and they go, this is just unappealing to me, or this is a put off, right? Like everybody has one of those, right? Everybody has a bodily fluid, right? That in some way, shape, or form disgusts them. Some people it's snot, some people it's throw up, some people it's blood, some people it's, whatever it may be. But you know what I'm saying? It's the same thing here. There's just some things that you go, and it's not to say that I wouldn't play this. It's not to say that I'm against this or rallying or banning or canceling or whatever, right? It's just, you know what? I just feel weird about gambling, especially with the rise of all the gambling going on with sports now. Like, you can't watch anything sport-wise, side rant tangent, that, on any platform, cable, streaming, whatever, without being inundated with sports betting and trying to make it okay. So unless you just won the lottery this past weekend from the $987 million, holy cow, that even makes me want to buy a ticket. I have a hard time. It's just my own mental block. Are you okay with this? Are you wanting deluxeified? Because this is a party game with betting. And do you want to bet fake stuff? It's like, do you want to go drink non-alcoholic stuff too? Just sometimes you either just want to do it or you don't. And I guess if you really enjoy the simulation of this, go for it. But again, this is a known quantity. So if you didn't like it, again, the deluxeifications aren't going to change your mind on the core concept of a game like this, just like everything else. Scaled up. And again, it looks beautiful. It's fantastic. All of the biggest and best people in our hobby love this game. And who am I to argue with any of them? So go spend $100 on this game and you can be like them as well. I'm done. Next game. Ascending Empires. Speaking of niche, Play to Z. Not even 1,000 backers. Not even $100,000. I'm a little surprised by this one. No lie, right? I expected this to do better. This is just, again, this is more of my vibe. 4X flicking. You know me at this point. I'm a dexterity gamer. And that's just it. I don't think dexterity in general does well on crowdfunding. Period. Even with the space fantasy theme, even with the deluxeified, little miniature flickers, I think it looks cool. I love the idea of tech tree. I love the idea of a very quick playing 4X flick game. it screams me. But it also screams try before you buy too, because it's just that different. And nothing wrong with that. It's just, that's the way it is, right? With all of the interactions that you're going to be having to do, the way you're going to be exploring the mechanisms of going to the planets and then having to be on the planets before you can do certain things on the planets in the first place, and then going and battling people like that as well. So it's just different. And I think it's going to be divisive. And I guess maybe not divisive, right? Just, another way that I said earlier in another video was it's either going to make you hot or cold, right? This is either going to be completely, absolutely something you desire, or there's not going to be a lot of middle ground for people that are like semi-curious, right? The semi-curious are not going to go in on this one because, you're talking triple digits for that. And that's, again, from a consumer standpoint, I don't speculate a whole lot. Star Wars crack. Anyway, but that's the issue, right? I don't want to spend $110 to turn around and sell it for 85 or 100 or anything, right? Like that's not, I know, and you guys tell me in this comment section all the time, like, Chris, I'm okay with doing that. I'm not losing as much money. If I go to the movies, I don't get anything back. I understand, but it's the premise of it, folks. It's the premise of it. So I would love to end up with a copy of this because I would love to try it out. But I also worry too, right? Like, the whole thing about flicking and dexterity games as well is there's simplicity, the elegance in the simplicity. And I worry that if you take a 30-page rule book now with a dexterity game, does that get rid of some of the elegance that you may want or like in the first place? Last couple here at the end. Massive Verse, I covered this one, right? This is Pocket Paragons with a more streamlined pop culture hero aesthetic. It's got a lot more counter in it in terms of the actual mechanics. And if you're not familiar with the game as a whole, right, you just play your cards from your hand, you paper, scissors, rock, lizard, spocket, and you hopefully out-meta your opponent in a, less than 10-minute game. This is slightly different. Choose your aesthetic vibe. You can also get the acquisitions incorporated. They have the other ones down here below, but it's really straightforward. What you see is what you get. It's really chaotic. It's really random. And so I mean that random in the sense that sometimes you just outplay your opponent and not always the best person wins. And so if you're okay with that as a quick player, go for it. Because, it's cool. But if that's not your vibe, this game should not be in your collection because it's going to be more frustrating than anything else for you as a whole. Then, you know what? I'm really surprised by this one. No lie, right? It has to be the Harry Potter effect. Because there is just a dearth of certain IPs now. Dearth meaning my mother was an English teacher. Lacking, an emptiness, a space needing to be filled, essentially, of Harry Potter games or good IPs in general. I was just talking online the other day about the fact that, One Piece or other anime, again, right? Like you've heard that once or twice on my channel if you're a long-time subscriber, like that just those IPs are just completely missing from our hobby as a whole, which is mind-boggling. It's sort of like why the MCU and superheroes never got on traction-wise on movies until they did. And so all I think it's going to take is one or two of these really, really good anime-based games to open people's eyes to it. But anyway, I side tangent there. Night games, night models, $500,000. This game was not good, folks. This game has like a 4 rating over on Board Game Geek. Do you know how not good you have to be to get a 4 rating on Board Game Geek, right? Like, people look down on games, rightly or wrongly so, I'm not going to judge, but people look down, in some ways, on games that have like under a 7 rating. And they're like, well, I don't want to play that. And this has a 4. Just take that for you will. Because of how they handled it, the rules mess that it was the first time around, the extreme FOMO they did at the retail side of things, the fragility of these models in the first place, and now they came back to crowdfunding and said, just kidding, we have sort of a better rule book, and we're going to make you FOMO again. Are you okay with that? Like, personally speaking, like, I would love a Harry Potter game. My kids love Harry Potter. But I can't risk this. You want to speak of speculation and not being able to turn stuff around? Yeah, that's what you had here for $300, right? And now a good portion only went for the $200. Ooh. And look at all these exclusive ones, right? I wasn't kidding. They exclusivized the hell out of this as well. So the other thing I wonder, how different are these characters? Like, when I see exclusives nowadays, I go, that's fine and all, but like, are the Dursleys going to be dramatically different from Ollivander, who's going to be dramatically different from Neville, who's going to be dramatically different from Fudge or Lupin or Sirius Black? Like, what are the actual differences there? Or is it going to be just zombie side with different miniatures, right? Because look at this. You've got like half a dozen miniatures on the board, and look at all the miniatures that are surrounding the board. Look how many things that you have that you're not playing with. Whoa, that's a meta statement right there, right? Somebody better quote me in the comment section down below. That's a good one. But that's what I wonder about right here, right? Magical Masters. What's the difference? Servants of the Deck, Black, whatever. Magic is Might, again, whatever. All of these expansions. How different are some of these things going to be? Now, you got a solo mode, got a co-op mode. Is the co-op mode only for the Basilisk? I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I kind of just dropped this, off my radar once it launched, after it launched, because I said, I don't really want to do it. Now, the monster expansion, again, you have a whole new mode and a whole new expansion. How much are you willing to go in on it to fix things? Because look at these expansion prices, folks. Expansion prices. Whoosh. It's a ton of money for expansions. It's a ton of money for exclusives. You have to have different boards. I mean, it's just a lot of stuff and nickel and diming that stuff. So how much comparatively do you get in the core set when you're giving like 4 extra boards separately and, all of these different characters separately? That makes me wonder about the core pledge as a whole, if the core box in and of itself is actually going to be worth it as a whole. So you move, you cast, you draw the top card, to figure out whether you cast well or it was blocked. Because sometimes you cast and someone doesn't even counter it and you don't win. You do your quests in order to win. You have these little clash battles of the same way of casting. So there you go. I don't know. I'd be a little trepidatious if I was pledging for this one. Again, no lie. Like, it'll probably be on my watch list when it comes out. And, I would be happily surprised and happily wrong. But I'm a little bit nervous. There you go. That is your don't back anything, including stuff that's going on currently, stuff that's ended, and my thoughts on way too much of it. Hopefully, as always, this was an enjoyable ride. Thank you, and please tip your driver. Hit the thumb button, help me on my Patreon, whatever it may be. Watch the outtakes at the end of the video. I don't know. Just have a great freaking day. Stay classy. See you around. The Trafts, when they went with that one, the Hashi and Hashi one,